If you remain silent, it will strike dread deep inside their own being. The stillness you maintain is not merely silent, it is lethal. People are not simply anxious, they are afraid because they have already figured out the pattern the instant you stop talking to them. As soon as you stop speaking altogether, they are aware of what is going to happen next. Judgment will follow like a storm, which will be rapid, unmerciful, and unavoidable by nature. There is no sign of weakness in your silence. Rather, it is the calm before you unleash the repercussions. They have acquired the knowledge. They have acquired the knowledge to dread that silence, because what follows can completely alter everything. They assumed that your voice was disposable, a background noise that they could tune out whenever it was convenient for them to do so. Remember how they disregarded you, how they nodded their heads with empty eyes when you stated the truth, how they interrupted and degraded you, and how they missed the point entirely. But now they feel it. The void where your energy previously flowed, the startling, scary vacuum that formed the minute you decided that they no longer deserved your breath or your attention. Your silence is not simply the lack of words. Rather, it is a force of nature that has started to tear through their reality. They are aware of the fact that something has shifted. For some reason, the shadows are growing longer, and they are aware, deep inside their beings, that it began the minute you became silent. It was initially just a glimmer of worry, a small discomfort that they were unable to identify. Nevertheless, now it swallows them. The anxiety spreads through their consciousness like wildfire. The weight of your absence causes their nights to become restless, their thoughts to disperse like ashes in the wind, and their certainty dissolves under the pressure of your absence. How much power they gave you by underestimating your silence, how much authority they gave you by presuming that your voice was the only weapon you had. The cosmic joke that causes the entire universe to shake with black laughter is the irony that they raised you to the position of their judge by dismissing you. This irony burns through their reality. Always keep in mind that they did not value your voice until it was no longer there. Until they experienced the cold, they did not appreciate the warmth that you provided. It wasn't until your power was no longer benefiting them that they acknowledged its existence. They become immovable as a result of the shock, which causes them to stand still in the face of your absence. They give the impression that your shadow is still there in the areas that you formerly occupied, as if it is trying to provide some insight into the mystery surrounding your departure. However, you did not leave any breadcrumbs, a trail to follow, or a map by which they could find their way back to your energy. They reach out to mutual contacts, they concoct reasons to contact you, and they manufacture emergencies that might demand your response. Each attempt is more blatant than the last, and each failure drives the knife deeper into their swollen egos. Their astonishment will eventually transform into desperation. They concoct intricate tales in order to justify your quiet, persuade themselves that you are simply preoccupied, reassure themselves that you will eventually come around, and reassure one another that no one can remain silent for an indefinite period of time. The truth is festering beneath these lies like an infected wound. You have delivered your final words to them, and the revelation shatters their image of their own importance. These lies bring momentary solace, but behind them lays the truth festers like an infected wound. When you walk away from anything, consequences will follow. This pattern cannot be disputed, it cannot be explained away, and it cannot be reasoned. In the event that you disconnect your energy, confusion will break forth. In the event that you withdraw your light, Darkness will surge in to grab what you have abandoned. It's not a coincidence. This is a law of the universe. They never believed in karma until they experienced it for themselves, and they laughed at the spiritual ramifications until they found themselves in the position of being the case study. They were oblivious to the concept of universal justice until they found themselves on the receiving end of its ruthless equilibrium. Simply being silent is not the same thing as being absent. Rather, it is a verdict, a judgment that is not based on your words, but rather on the cosmos itself. You didn't have to curse them, you didn't have to threaten them, and you didn't have to look into their future and predict that they would fail. You did nothing more than step aside and let natural law take its course. And oh, how it has fulfilled your expectations. When you, the foundation that they never acknowledged, made the decision to remove yourself from the equation, you will see their carefully created facades begin to crack, their false achievements begin to disintegrate, and their delicate friendships begin to fracture into betrayal. All of this will occur because you chose to remove yourself from the equation. You are here for a reason. If you feel the call, answer it. Click Join to unlock exclusive content, deep insights, and a powerful community. This isn't just a membership, it's an awakening. Step into your divine purpose. Join the chosen. Observe how quickly judgment follows silence, and how precisely the consequences correspond with the transgressions that have occurred. Now, the person who has been dishonest is secluded. The person who has been dishonest is drowning in lies, and the one who has stolen energy is now standing drained. With a symmetry that is both accurate and awful, the cosmic scales are in equilibrium. They look for external explanations, blame circumstances, other people, bad luck, Mercury retrograde, and anything else that is not the truth staring them in the face, which is that your removal was the spark for their collapse. The cosmos functions according to patterns that are too flawless to be coincidental, and the pattern that surrounds your silence conveys a great deal of information that even those who are consciously deaf will ultimately be able to hear. Each denial reinforces the verdict, each excuse magnifies the punishment, and each refusal to acknowledge your absence as the turning point only makes your silence more deafening in its power. Their attempts to free themselves from the judgment only serve to further bind them in its web. There is no denying the fact that the cosmos keeps score. It meticulously records every slight that has been committed against you, tallies every dismissal of your truth, and calculates the exact weight of disrespect that they have thrown upon your shoulders throughout the course of your life. In addition to this, the cosmic accountant has now demanded payment for their debt. It is impossible to argue against the mathematical principles that underpin spiritual justice. Energy must be balanced, power must be equalized, and what was taken must be repaid. The fundamental equations that regulate existence itself are not human laws that may be bypassed or bargained. Rather, these are the laws that govern existence itself. The collection process was launched. The worldwide audit of all they owe was initiated, and the reclamation of energy that they took through 1,000 small thefts that they hoped would go undiscovered was set in motion as a result of your quiet. Be sure to observe how precisely their current suffering is a reflection of the agony they have inflicted upon you in the past. How precisely their current isolation is a match for the loneliness they have caused you, and how precisely their current bewilderment is a match for the gaslighting they have administered to you. The penalties that the universe imposes are crafted with the meticulous attention to detail of an artist, and the symmetry would be stunning if it weren't so devastating. As the heavenly scoreboard lights their deficit in neon throughout the universe, there is no hiding from this debt, no bankruptcy protection from karmic creditors, and no escape the spiritual judgment that your silence has created. Moreover, you are not a participant in this process. You are neither the judge nor the executioner. Rather, you are merely the individual who has stopped bearing the consequences of their acts. It is not necessary for you to compute their punishment, because the universe is capable of handling the mathematical aspects of justice with perfect precision. Not only do you refrain from reacting and explaining, but you also refrain from giving precious energy to people who would waste it. You have achieved mastery in the art of detachment, which is a discipline that terrifies people who made their emotional labor dependent on you. Your fervor, your enthusiasm, and your readiness to battle for the truth are all things that they have been accustomed to. If your heart overflows with God's blessings, let that love shine. Click the super thank you button and give $20 or more to plant seeds of faith that will impact countless lives. Your generosity reflects His abundance. Be a vessel of His grace and watch His kingdom flourish through you. They anticipated eruptions that they might use against you, arguments that they could interpret in a different way, and reactions that they could manage instead. Something much more powerful was given to them, and that was nothing. Nothing is more unsettling to manipulators than the realization that they no longer have access to your feelings. Nothing is more frightening to energy vampires than the realization that their host has cut them off. And nothing is more upsetting to narcissists than coming face to face with someone who refuses to be their mirror. Your detachment is of the highest caliber. The ability to observe without absorbing, to witness without engaging, and to know without the need to prove is something that you have acquired. This is not the petty silence of someone who has been hurt. Rather, it is the profound stillness of someone who has transcended the need for approval from the outside world. Currently, the power is moving in the silence, in the pauses that occur between words, and in the breath that you deliberate not to waste. Because they have never experienced true strength, they misinterpret your tranquility as a sign of weakness, a soul-deep dedication to your own value, a merciless prioritizing of your spiritual sovereignty, and sleepless nights and heartbreaking battles with your own conditioning were all necessary components in order to achieve this detachment. It was not an easy process. However, now it flows through you like second nature, the mastery of energetic boundaries that you have worked so hard to achieve. In order for you to return to your duty as their emotional caretaker, they anticipated that your detachment would be a brief state, a passing phase, or a short stance. The realization that this is something that will last forever has jolted them to their very core. This is not a strategy for negotiating a deal or a penalty with a time restriction. Rather, it is your progression beyond their limiting understanding of who you are. Your detachment discloses the imbalance that has always been there in your relationships, demonstrates the one-way streets that they attempted to convince you were conduits of equal exchange, and displays the parasitic character of ties that they presented as symbiotic. As a result of your silence, the truth is exposed, and they are unable to handle the thought of looking at it directly. Your silence has rendered you unreadable, and there is nothing that would terrify them more than something that they are unable to comprehend. How do they currently stand in relation to you? What is going through your mind behind those expressionless eyes? When you have a quiet mind, what steps are you preparing to make? Because humans are afraid of things that they cannot foretell, the questions haunt them at all hours of the day and night. A person who does not declare their next move is a powerful opponent, but they failed to recognize this fact. The fact that actual authority does not have to be shouted, that genuine strength does not require constant demonstration, and that genuine power functions in silence like gravity, which is unseen but obvious in its effect, was something that they never managed to comprehend. Your silence compels them to confront their own thoughts, worries, and insecurities, which they would otherwise avoid experiencing. Once they are no longer able to be distracted by your speech, they are forced to finally listen to the voices that are within themselves. These are the voices that they have been trying to drown out with noise and commotion, and what they hear is terrifying to them. Because their intuition is speaking now, it is not influenced by your reassurance, and their conscience is judging them without being influenced by your forgiveness. The future that they have in front of them is unaffected by the counsel that you provide. They have never been in a situation where they are forced to confront the reality about who they are, and they are unable to face the sight. In their life, you have transformed into a quantum force, which is simultaneously present and absent, influencing everything, yet having no direct impact on anything. They are unable to choose your course of action or evaluate your goals effectively. Not only does this uncertainty overwhelm them, but it also eats away at their sense of control and erodes their idea of being in control. The unreadable becomes the unconquerable. What they are unable to comprehend, they are unable to vanquish. What they are unable to forecast, they are unable to manage. And what they are unable to access, they are unable to corrupt. Due to your silence, you have become an impenetrable mystery and a fortress that does not have any gates. Their search for entrance points that no longer exist in the information vacuum is a never-ending loop that they continue to circle. They develop complicated scenarios based on pieces and assumptions, and their imaginations have the ability to create phantoms. They project their worries onto the blank canvas that is your silence. The monsters that people picture lurking behind your stillness are reflections of their own darkness. These are the aspects of themselves that they have refused to accept until your mirror forced them to confront them. Take a look at them now. These are the same people who laughed behind your back, who disregarded your warnings, and who believed that they were untouchable due to their arrogance. They are currently sitting in the ruins of their own demise. Their strategies, their games, and their manipulations were all unable to endure the storm that followed your departure. Despite the fact that the structure they constructed on shifting sand is now lying in ruins all around them, they are aware of the reason why it collapsed. Should we blame you for this collapse? Not at all. You just ceased to be the power that was responsible for holding their shaky structures together. You ceased to be the foundation that supported their fragile egos. You withdrew the energy that they had been siphoning from in order to sustain their fantasies. They constructed the tower, disregarded the warning signs, and laughed at the impending storm without taking any precautions. Simply stepping aside and allowing nature to take its course was all that happened. At this point, it is far too late for them to realize that it is impossible to violate the laws of the universe without incurring consequences. They perish as a result of the consequences of their own decisions. The same decisions that you warned them against, the same patterns that you detected, and the same behaviors that you refuse to enable any longer. Now, they are scrambling for higher ground as the waves rise, wondering why no one warned them. However, you did warn them with every boundary that they crossed, with every truth that they denied, and with every value that they compromised. However, their words fell on deaf ears, And now they must hear the deafening silence of your absence while they crumble, while you accelerate, while they drown, and while they cling to the wreckage of what was. You are willing to accept the promise of what is to come. As your life continues to move on with unstoppable speed, they are left behind in the dust that they have created for themselves. Every day that goes by, every decision that you make, and every breath that you take brings you more apart. At this point, you are no longer within their control. You are no longer subject to their constraints, and you are no longer constrained by their expectations. From a distance, they observe your transformation, your expansion, and your rise to power as you take control. They never believed you possessed it. Every achievement you achieve without them is another evidence of how terribly they miscalculated. Every goal you reach without their support is confirmation that they were never the benefactors they professed to be. It is important to realize that you were never, ever the one who required their assistance. Rather, it was they who required your presence, your vitality, your brightness, and your point of view, because they were unaware that you were extending an offer to them that they did not merit. They misunderstood your inclusion of them as a sign of reliance. As of right now, the invitation has been revoked. The door has been shut. The bridge has been destroyed. While on the other hand, you are flourishing in ways that are beyond their comprehension. Your development without them is the most heartbreaking silence of all, because it is evidence that their presence in your life was not the blessing that they believed it to be. I see they continue to watch. Make no mistake. Hiding behind their apparent indifference is an obsessive attention that can be seen through social media, glimpsed through mutual relationships, and through the energetic web that binds all beings. Their professions of detachment are belied by the fact that they consume news of your journey with a hunger that is excessive. They declare, "I don't even think about them anymore, even when your name is burning on their tongue. I stopped thinking about them." They claim, "I've moved on completely," while reading through your life with shaking fingers through your life. As their envy grows more intense, their complaints become more audible. This is a clear attempt to convince themselves that they are telling the truth. What is it that they are most envious of, that the universe refuses to validate? Your freedom is what truly consumes them, not your external accomplishments which provoke their resentment, not your apparent happiness which fuels their resentment. Rather, what truly consumes them is your freedom, the way in which you release them without second thoughts, the way in which you refuse to be bound by attachment, and the way in which you walked away while they remained chained to the memory of what they lost. Even in their silence, they are troubled by the realization that they were never required, that the world continued to turn without their input, and that your tale continued to unfold without them as characters playing a role. This has shown to be their greatest fear. They were always able to be replaced, whereas you were always something that was needed. Their self-assurance is eroded, and their haughtiness is brought down by this information, which consumes them from the inside out. When they are alone, the question that keeps them up at night is, if they were mistaken about the value that they hold for you, what else could they possibly be wrong about? Their quiet was interpreted as a sign of submission, weakness, and defeat. Because your silence was not a white flag, but rather a declaration of war, they were perplexed, concerned, and horrified by your failure to participate in conflict. They expected you to fight, argue, plead, justify, and explain, and your refusal to do so caused them to be confused, concerned, and terrified. You did not fight on their terms. You did not engage on their battlefield, and you did not play by their rules. Rather, You simply disappeared from their equation, and the universe took care of the rest. There was no controversy, no proclamation, and no big conclusion. It was simply the silent closing of a door that they were unaware could be locked behind them. This is power in its purest form. It is not the power that makes its presence known by trumpets and titles. It is not the force that requires continual attention and validation. Rather, it is the power that glides stealthily through the world, transforming all it touches without the need to be seen. Now they are in a state of suffering, and you are in a position of power. This is not because you sought vengeance. Vengeance would require you to still care, nor is it because you plotted their downfall. Their downfall was inscribed in their own choices, but rather because you finally realized that your worth was never dependent on their recognition of it. Remember this moment, the moment when you realized that leaving would speak volumes more than staying long enough to shout. The moment when you realized that your absence would teach lessons that your presence could never teach. The moment when you realized that silence was not the absence of power, but rather power concentrated through silence. With your quiet, you have communicated more effectively than any words could ever do. You have pierced more deeply than any insult, and you have endured longer than any dispute. The message is unequivocally transmitted throughout the universe. You are no longer able to access my energy supply, not because you are seeking vengeance, because you have moved beyond such earthly concerns, but because they see judgment unfolding before their eyes. Not your judgment, but universal judgment. The natural consequences of imbalance, the inevitable correction that follows disrespect. Because of this, the people who once tested your boundaries now fear your silence. You are stronger, invincible, and unstoppable than they are, and you push forward while they languish in remorse. Your way forward is not illuminated by their approval, but rather by the light that emanates from within you. The light that they attempted to dull, but which only succeeded in teaching you to protect yourself. Your absence has allowed you to establish your presence. Your withdrawal has allowed you to demonstrate your power, and it is magnificent. You have discovered your voice in your silence. You have established your presence in your absence. All of this has occurred without you uttering a single word, including the passing of the judgment, the delivery of the verdict, and the beginning of the sentence. Because silence, specifically your silence, is lethal, and they were completely unprepared for it. It is your silence that will continue to resonate across the universe long after the dust has settled, after the lessons have been learned, and after the repercussions have taken their course. It is a standing wave that continues to affect reality long after its origin has been forgotten, and the echo of your silent words will continue to be a permanent alteration in the universal frequency. Your lack of speech is impervious to the passage of time, existing simultaneously in the past, the present, and the future. In every new interaction, they will carry the memory of your silence with them. They will instinctively test new ties against the standard that you created, and they will forever measure the power of others against the force of your absence. Because of this, you have become their point of reference for spiritual sovereignty. You are the standard against which all energetic boundaries will be judged. This echo is not limited to those individuals who have directly experienced your silence. Rather, it spreads outward to touch lives that are related to theirs and develops patterns that are passed down from generation to generation. Shock waves are sent through the collective consciousness as a result of your one act of energetic reclamation, which inspires others to reclaim their own power via the sacred art of silence.